Few things can replace the yard of bricks and the prestige that Speedway Indiana's 2.5-mile oval contains, even virtually, as the best of the series take to one of the most famous tracks in all of the world. Where tonight we welcome you to coverage of the third race in Season 4 campaign of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series right here from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we bring you all of it here on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you along us for the ride on race number 3 of what is a very long Season 4 Wide Racing campaign. We're alongside Francisco Bacchial in the broadcast booth here from the virtual Brickyard. My name is Kenneth Bueno. And Francisco, I think easily taking the page off of what the first 2 races have shown us, it is that anything can happen. We've seen a lot of chaos, a lot of carnage, lots of wild finishes, wild battles. But tonight could possibly be a pivotal moment in the season with a track that usually provides some great racing but can easily lend itself to strategy in all fronts.
Indianapolis has been an interesting racetrack in the past for us, Kenneth. Just last season we saw a major strategy event take place between different amounts of stops, different timing of pit stops, and it saw Brian M. Smith play the strategy just right, and it saw him taking a big win there. Although he wasn't in the playoffs, he was able to capture a big monumental win at such a historic racetrack, and we'll see if tonight which one of these drivers can take a big monumental win at such a historic racetrack as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which opened in 1911, which is one of the older tracks in the United States and has just featured so many great moments with both the Indy cars, the Formula One race cars, and of course, since 1994 to the NASCAR Cup Series. And unfortunately, it won't be on the Cup Series schedule on the oval this season. They'll be racing on the road course, but in this series, we will be on the big oval, which has produced many memories, and we'll have to see if we continue the trend of last lap passes here. We've had 2 in the first 2 races. Can we go 3 for 3?
We'll try to see if we can go for 3. It has been a very interesting season to say the least, although we're already 2 races in, but tonight again is going to be a very interesting change in what could be possibly a very pivotal race in the point standings and moving forward throughout. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, again, prestigious venue located in Speedway, Indiana, as we take a look at our track map overhead with images courtesy of Google Earth. And you'll go to, of course, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. No real introduction to be given about this 2.5-mile oval rectangle shape. Of course, 2.5 miles, about 4-ish kilometers, with banking at about 9.2 degrees in every single corner. But Francisco, in many ways, obviously, IndyCar is so famous for running here at the Indianapolis 500 every year. NASCAR has been running at this oval for a while. They're switching now to the road course this season, but they have been known for being on this oval along with many other types of cars. What seems to be the biggest challenge as a driver approaching a track that not only is so large, but a track that has very different corners and very different chutes each and every time throughout?
In every racing aspect here, one of the main struggles has always been tire wear, and it won't be any different here today. You can get up to close to 2 seconds of fall off in a full run here, so tires will wear, and we'll have to see just how these guys do manage the sets that they have. If we have an increased amount of yellows from last season like we have been seeing in the first 2 races, it'll be very tough to manage all sets that they have. I believe tonight, though, is something interesting. I'm looking here. We have unlimited sets here for tonight, very contrasting as to what we've seen in the first 2 races where they've had 6 sets. Tonight, tires are unlimited. You can get as many as you want anytime you want. So it'll come down to when do you decide to pit, if you decide to pit whenever there's a yellow.
Well, these races at Indianapolis have always lent themselves to the strategy side as opposed to the chaos side. We'll see exactly what happens as we move forward. But with Indianapolis becomes our 3rd race in this season out of the many that we're going to see here in this Season 4 Wide Racing campaign. We'll take a look at your season schedule as released. You see Indianapolis there, August 4th. That's where we are right now, race number 3, after seeing Auto Club in Phoenix being taken away by Colin Forster via last lap passes. Then we have the Super Speedway, the World Center of Racing, the Daytona International Speedway, that'll come your way next week, but very interesting parts of the schedule. We won't see Indianapolis at all after this one, so this is just a one-off race, and actually considering many one-off races in this schedule, Francisco. So do you try to look at this as kind of the opportunity to take a win away if you're very good at it, or do you think that this is probably just another learning curve for that when you go to tracks maybe like Pocono or maybe like other venues throughout this season, you can try to take notes off of what you saw here at the Brickyard and then implement it?
I think at a track like this, Kenneth, you have to absolutely maximize your opportunity now. There's not much that you can learn here and apply to other tracks. I know you mentioned Pocono with the tunnel turn, but that's really about it. So otherwise, you're going to be trying to attack this race, attack what you can, and try and see if you can just win and get the most that you can in this particular race. We're not running here again, and there's no track that's really similar to this. So there's not much you can take away, say if you were running at a mile and a half. So this is definitely going to be really a one-off, if you will, for this kind of racetrack. And what a better way than it being at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
We're going to have a fantastic race here tonight. You can see the drivers lined up and doubled up behind the iRacing official pace car. That means it is our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be starting here tonight from the famous Yard of Bricks. TJ Bursky had very disappointing first two races, looking for a first race win in the Cup Series after sweeping the first two races in the ARCA Series. He's going to lead us from the pole with a 51.874 alongside last season's Daytona winner Tyler Warner in row number 1.
And looking back at your second row, you see Nicholas Vizuzzi, third once again. That's his favorite spot to start. And outside of him, Ricky Rosner, who had a struggle last night in the ARCA race, but a good early beginning for him here.
Back to row number 3, Dustin Webb and Ken MacArthur will line up your third row to P6.
Looking down on your fourth row, Pete Bruni in that 7th position, and alongside him, AJ Green, who was oh so close to winning at Auto Club. Let's see if another big track lends himself to an opportunity.
Back to the top 10, defending winner 2 times in a row, Colin Forster in a different number, but he's going to start 9th with Brandon T. Banks on his outside through the top 10.
In that 6th row, Eric Schaefer in the 11th position, and alongside him, another rookie, Adam Alashire in that 4th, who has not put in a time, it seems, but he has shown that he has been strong in the early portion of the season. Let's see what he can do here tonight.
Back to row 7, Austin Reedy in the 11, Kyle Benson in the 10. 2 very strong contenders in the Cup Series. They're going to have a work to cut out for them as they start in row number 7 to P14.
Your 8th row consists of Michael Woolley in the 69, rolling off in P15, and Craig Lautensonger, strong in many races this season. He has a lot of cars he wants to pass if he wants to find himself at the front of the field in 16th.
We'll look to the rest of this field. 34, Lance Hill in 17th with Tyler Murray behind him in 18th. Austin Bloom, Cody Kinsey to your top 20 with CJ Munir and Michael Newbraw to P22. Final driver in this field will be the 9 of Brandon Gillis. We'll see how things fare at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll start with the conditions overhead with a temperature of 77 degrees, but a very notable track temperature in the triple digits, 110 degrees here in a blistering Indianapolis Motor Speedway surface. We've got only 5-mile-per-hour winds to the south. It's a partly cloudy day here in Speedway, Indiana, so no looks for bad weather here, just for bad track temp if it comes down to the tires and the grip. As we were going over the starting grid, see a couple changes there, which does include Craig Lautensager and Lance Hill in the first and second rows, so I guess something might have been mixed up in qualifying. Scoring tells us that Tyler Warner should be on the outside of row 1. He's back in row number 3 on the inside lane. Nonetheless, we're going to see everybody doubled up, ready to go here from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been a chaotic first 2 races. We'll see if the third one can lend us any different. Pace car going to come down. TJ Bursky, Craig Lautensager, your first row to the green flag.
And look at all this stack up going on in the back end of the field, the car to the inside wall. And they're wrecking already on the front straightaway. Big one in the back of the field. We have a car upside down.
We got many cars swiveling around, one upside down. You see Cody Kinsey was involved, and I believe it was the 97 of Ken MacArthur who went barrel rolling to the outside wall. He almost gets hit by the pace car there. The 10 machine of Kyle Benson, he's gotten involved as well. And it was the shift to turn 1 that completely sent the field into peril. Take a look at this replay as we're looking at exactly what happened. And oh, it was right there. Pete Bruni actually got tagged around. And look at the wild ride that Kyle Benson goes on. Excuse me, it was not Ken MacArthur that went flipping over. It was the 10 of Kyle Benson. You'll see it there, but it was contact between the 08 of Bruni, the 97 of Ken MacArthur. Wow, what a ride that the 10 goes through in turn 1.
It did not take long for us to match last night's caution count, and it was before turn 1. And a big one there involving Kyle Benson. I'm sure he did not expect to be upside down in turn 1. He was probably anticipating trying to make as many passes as he can to find himself up in the field. And if you think about it, Kenneth, that is the trouble of being back in the back side of the field. You can get involved in incidents like this early on and have to use a fast repair, and that could really set you back. There you see right there, 78 on early troubles for him. A lot of people with a big setback early on in this one.
And Brian M. Smith, remember, he is your defending winner at this track due to a strategy that we were not looking for at that moment all race long. And he started up front at the Brickyard the last time we visited here with the Cup Series. So to see him now 15th, and most likely going to have to employ that fast repair to start, it is not very breezy for the driver of the 78. You see a couple drivers now just aiming to slow down for the pace car. I don't think Craig Launsarger, or at least he's trying to find the pace car for the most part. It's a little bit hard to see where the pace car ends up here at a track so large. I think he's finally caught up with it. There he is. He's going to catch up to the pace car on the yard of bricks. And we're under our first caution already out of the 80 scheduled laps that we're set to have here from Indianapolis. So I guess, Francisco, I think you said it right already, just pretty much picking up where we left off after what was Auto Club, after what was Phoenix, and even here at Indianapolis, we've had lap 1 chaos before we even get to the first short shoot in the back straightaway.
Yeah, and already starting really with the contrast to what we saw last night in the ARCA race over in Iowa. It was a short track, and we only had the one caution rather late in the race, breaking up that long green flag run. But already tonight, a big crash involving several cars and several notable drivers, really. So we'll have to see. You see right there, Brian M. Smith pulling the trigger on the fast repair, several others pulling into their boxes using the fast repair. Everybody's using the fast repair, and they really have to, except right there, you notice Pete Bruni did not use it, trying to save that fast repair. You can still tell the damages on his race car, so he's going to try his best to repair what he got and potentially try and save that for later in case he has to. And Brian M. Smith here, a bit of a slow exit, but he will make his way off of pit road. So the rest of these drivers will try and catch up to the pace car, who I believe will take the 1 to green this next time by. So interesting first corner of the race, I guess.
Indeed, first half corner. I don't even think we got to really the first.
I think the first like 200 feet.
It was really the first 200 feet or so. I think that is perfect description right there. It was the first length before you even started turning the wheel that the drivers got into contact. But that can also play to just how, or at least how crazy the restarts can get, or even initial starts at a track like Indianapolis, because the field is obviously coming up to a start. Everybody's going through the gears. And then you're trying to pick up as much speed. Some drivers get better restarts than other, and then you try to make moves to turn 1. And especially with the way Indianapolis is, it's kind of wide, but in most cases, because of the preferred racing line here, it gets very narrow near that white line. So if you get to the inside, chances are the driver on your outside is most likely going to back out, which means you can get early positions on the first lap, and that's always good to have here. But at the same time, you run the risk of possible 3 wide, 4 wide, and you can't really support that here at Indianapolis. Even in Indy cars, you can't put that much with the way the downforce is on those cars. So to have that very early is a big statement for many of the drivers, and could be a note to be taken for many near the rear of the field to be a little more careful on the restarts. We'll see exactly what happens. What I did notice, though, was that you're looking at the driver in the lead right now who's going to control this next restart. The 13 of Craig Launsarger actually got the jump on TJ Bursky going into turn 1 while everything went down going to the first turn of the racetrack. So the 13 will have the advantage and hopefully be able to push his way up to the front of the field, keep himself planted there, and already take away the spot that TJ Bursky had locked in to start.
And it seems as though on that initial start, Kenneth, that the 13 got pushed by, I believe it was Austin Reedy in the row behind. And according to the events that were described in the chat, it was a little early, but he got his black flags cleared because normally you're not supposed to beat the leader before the in the race start. So that's what happened. It was all settled down now, but it seems as though that's been fixed. And that's part of the trouble of the restarts here. There's no marked restart zone. And considering the start of the race is on the green lights, it's just a pain when you have 2 walls next to you, no visual indication of when those lights have come on. I think for these next couple of starts, it should be easier considering Lautensanger will have that control. But for the race start or any time it's on the green lights, it's always going to be chaotic with everybody trying to time it. Lonsonger's actually not going to take the lead away. Burst gets back what was rightfully his from the race start. You see the 13 sort of lose the nose there off turn 2. So TJ Burst will find himself in the race lead, but this is where he's going to be at a massive disadvantage for the rest of the run, really, because he's going to be punching the air for everybody else, and constantly people are going to have runs into the corner. You see Lonsonger got really close, way too close. He's going to wash up the racetrack, and then there goes Austin Reedy now. Those two battled for second last night. They're battling for second right now, but I know Reedy's going to try and aim for that top position here shortly.
And Reedy was very aggressive with the driver that's now aiming to the inside. Last night at the virtual Iowa Speedway in the ARCA cars, these two were trying to run for the win. Well, they unfortunately were not able to get it, but still good spots out of these two, and they're still side by side as they try to catch the 94. That opens a door for the 34 of Lance Hill to try and peek his way through. However, he has not made a move yet. And we talked about it even off the air before we even started this broadcast, even last night after the ARCA Series race, the fact that with the new updates that iRacing implemented for the NASCAR Cup Series cars, it is a lot different than it used to be, because the draft is now pretty much heavily impacted in the way that runs develop and the way that these races end up. Even in early stages of the race, you can keep that draft with you, and even with dirty air, you're able to hang in with drivers in front of you. And that's what we're seeing right now, as Reedy has moved up to the third group, and he's going to lose 2 spots. That is the 27 of Austin Bloom and the 48 of AJ Green underneath.
I feel like the updates that iRacing made have been very solid for these very big tracks, these 2.5 mile, 2 mile, even the super speedways. I feel like they did a justice on those types of tracks, but if you consider the smaller tracks where they use this package at the mile and a halves even, I feel it's still not quite accurate to what we see in the real life Cup Series. But that's besides the point, because here you are constantly going to be in a draft with these long straightaways. They will play a factor. It will always play a factor. And there you see them snaking down the back straightaway, trying to break that draft to try and maybe minimize the run that they get. Lonsonger right now in that second position, trying to see if he can do anything to catch up to the 13 and most likely, or to the 94. Most likely, it's any moves that are going to be made are going to be going into turns 1 or 3. You can't really do anything between the short shoot to try and make a move into turns 2 and 4. So if any move is going to happen, it is most likely going to be made entering either this corner or turn 3.
And you gotta imagine as well that at a place like Indianapolis, even with the compounding draft help and the assists that these guys get because of the new updates with these Cup Series cars, you still have to make passes early at a track like this, because as the tires start to wear out, things are at one point going to start separating themselves around, and then everybody's going to be strung out by a handful of seconds, especially between the top 5 and top 10. So early on, when you're kind of here according with the rest of this field, it may be a good decision to make passes early instead of having to make them later when you're struggling for grip, and especially when you have to back these corners up. As you see the 11 try to gain back what he lost. He's now underneath the 27 of Austin Bloom and the 48 of AJ Green. Austin Bloom, the first time we see him in this series, though sporting some of the same colored cars that we've seen out of guys like Colin Forster and like AJ Green, as a move all the way to the inside of turn 1. That's Adam Alishire going underneath AJ Green.
And he's running that car for good luck. If you remember, Kyle Benson got a win at Kansas in that same scheme, so maybe a bit of superstition on his side, trying to see if he can take that same vehicle to victory lane, same number, same sponsor with the Gravedigger logos placed all over that race car. But at what you're seeing right now, Kenneth, on lap 9 of this race, is the dirty airs in the corners is very impactful. That's why you can't really see anybody making a move towards the front side of this field. The draft, very helpful on these straightaways, very hurtful in the corners. But look at Austin Reedy get a really good run through turn 3. He's actually going to make a move going into turn 4. Disadvantage now as they almost make contact. The disadvantage is now because look at this. Everybody's on that outside. That's going to leave the 11 out to dry on this long straightaway.
And the 27 is going to give help out of the 34, which is only going to thrust him forward and possibly give him a shot at the 13, as the 11 trying to make use of that middle lane. Don't think Bloom is going to get too big of a run out of the short shoot. However, the space is going to run out, and the 11 pretty much has nowhere to go. Now he's going to complete the pass, so move the 11 back into 4th as TJ Bursky continues to run away by about a half a second over the field. There's a big move behind them. You saw it right to the right corner of your screen. 40 of AJ Green got way out of shape around Adam Alishire. He's going to keep it collected. No damage, or at least a little bit of damage to the right rear, but not too much to affect him aerodynamically. He's going to be okay. Could have been our first, or our second yellow rather, but seems to be clean now as of lap 10.
big moment right there for him, but he was able to recover. He's in the draft, so it'll take him not too long before that'll be a thing of the past. But there you see Austin Reedy pulling out, trying to see if he can make a move. He's going to try and dive it into turn one. I believe he's trying to go for the third spot. He may have it here. And now he has put himself behind Craig Lautensanger now, and see if those two that were battling for second can find themselves pushing each other towards that leader of TJ Bursk, who won the first two races in the ARCA Series this season, but has yet to have found success in the Cup Series. And it hasn't been for trying, but it just hasn't been his way. Can tonight be that night? Early methods, Kenneth, we're still an eighth of the way through the race, but early indications show that 94 is going to be fast.
Yeah, that 94, we talked about him as a development last night in the ARCA Series race over at Iowa, saying that he was not able to make that race and register in time, so TJ pretty much let go of his streak that he carried of first two race wins. And in possible ways, we've seen parallels between the Cup Series and the ARCA Series, right? For the fact that TJ Bursk was able to walk away with the first two wins in a row in the ARCA Series, and then in the Cup Series, both race wins for the first two events have gone to Colin Forster. But now that last night we've had our first different winner, could tonight very well be a different page and possibly could give us our first different winner in the Cup Series. And Bursky, if he wins tonight, he will put himself in that book, even though he's won races in the ARCA Series respectively. He's not had that streak in this series. And speaking of Colin Forster, the 99 has worked his way up to 6. You see him there, brand new paint scheme, and kind of coincision with Colin, or rather Team Trackhouse, sorry about that. The 99 Daniel Suarez, the kind of promo car that they ran before they started the NASCAR Cup Series season this year. And Forster, again, looking for a third straight victory after last lap passes at both the Auto Club Speedway and the Iowa Speedway. Although I think he's gotten past the worth of it, Francisco, because look at this. Too wide, 2 rows deep, and the 48 of AJ Green can absolutely send it to turn 1.
Oh, that's not going to end well. Somehow they all managed to get through there, but not without someone losing a bit of time. And there you see Brian M. Smith is in the middle of this, trying to see if he can pick his way to the front of the field. Remember, he pitted under the caution, so he does have slightly fresher tires. Look at this amazing battle. They're going to go 4 wide momentarily before they all get clear of one another. A major battling going on back here. Everybody trying to fight for track position.
And all these guys all clustered together, man. Another driver here in this mix, Kyle Benson, the one that got involved in the first incident, along with Brian Smith. They're starting to pick their way through the field with only a handful of lap fresher tires. And now they're starting to make this pounce a little bit early and hopefully stay clear of the trouble. That's probably the goal for these two, is that they were near the rear of the field, got collected in an incident. They don't want to be involved in that again, so they'd rather stay up front or at least push their way up front to the point where they can be clear of all the mayhem and be able to command the field and not have to worry about getting any extra damage after burning that fast repair. That's Michael Woolley in the 69, by the way, who's ahead of the 78, and that's in between Alishire and Smith. And Woolley trying to make these moves early, trying to pinch the inside of the 4. And like you said there, Francisco, the setups have to be here. The back straightaway to turn 3 or the front straightaway to turn 1. And it's going to be for both Woolley and Smith. Smith's almost going to pinch it 3 wide. Woolley's going to clear the 4, but now the 78's going to pinch underneath, and the 69 has an extra car to worry about.
And Brian M. Smith, with that extra grip of those slightly fresher tires, should have the advantage. And going into turn 3, contact there. Into the right rear goes Woolley.
Woolley's going to be sent up the racetrack. He's not going to hit the outside wall, but that's going to slow them down. Allow the 33, the 48 to start to slip by, maybe give way and chance for both Vizuzzi and Brandon Banks, who currently sit right behind them. As meanwhile, no progress up front for most of the top 3, although Reedy is clawing down TJ Bursky. He was actually a little bit slower that last time by, but with the draft, he's been able to kind of hang in there, and that's pushed Launsauger and Austin Bloom back to 3rd and 4th. And I believe, actually, the 3rd team might have hit the outside wall. You see a bit of damage to the right front, so I don't believe it probably was just a clean pass. 3rd team might have had a mistake.
Perhaps, and that damage is going to be very significant at a track like this. It's going to not only hurt you in the corners with the downforce, but the straightaway speed. So though it looks finer, by no means behind the wheel does it feel minor, and that's definitely one of the important things. But look who's found himself already in the top 5. Your 2-time defending race winner, Colin Forster's wasted no time. He sees those 2 behind them, the 78 and the 10. They're on a rush to get to the front, and he wants to make sure he can stay with them.
And they're trying to catch up as well, just at least slingshot themselves to where TJ in the 94 is up front and be able to give themselves a shot. Again, trying to get rid of all the possibilities of mayhem to happen right in front of them, and they won't have to make any last-second maneuvers to get out of harm's way. But like you mentioned there with Launsauger, it looks minor from the outside, but at a place like Indianapolis, and especially these large tracks, we're going to see obviously Daytona as a track next week. We're going to see Michigan later on throughout the season, even Pocono as a track. Any sort of small damage you get to these high downforce cup cars is going to give you some sort of detriment aerodynamically and possibly handling wise. If you make a strike to that outside wall, that little crinkle, although maybe at most tracks it won't be too significant, at a place like Indianapolis, you're losing miles per hour and speed, and you can see it right there, the drastic difference between a car that's clean and Austin Bloom and Craig Launsauger, who has damage, and Bloom is going to make that pass for third.
And the 99 is going to be eager to try and get it done himself. Lance Hill back there in that 6th position. If he's not careful, he's going to be under fire from Brian M. Smith here very soon. But Bloom, in his first start here, Kenneth, he's doing a pretty solid job. Almost gets into the outside wall. Launsauger now is going to have a run with this draft. You can see he's going to make a move to the inside with a big run. The question is, can he make that pass going into turn 3? And I'm not sure if you noticed that. He also has a little bit of right rear damage on that quarter panel.
He does, but it's not necessarily affecting him too much, as he's in a dead heat battle with the 13. It's only going to slow them down as Launsauger just tries to work that white line, trying to make it fine. He's going to make it stick. And the 99 of Colin Forster is only going to be on the move, along with Hill, Smith, and Benson, as they continue to run through about the top 5. Gap is now 0.3 of a second, still stagnant between your top 2. And even after our first yellow, Francisco, seemed as though things have kind of calmed down a little bit. Maybe not so much with the passing-wise, especially on the back straightaway, but for the most part, I think by Phoenix, we will have already had a second yellow flag along with Auto Club, and tonight seems to be a little bit different, as we're seeing a lot of guys just pretty much snake trailing to either corner.
Oh man, don't get started on that. You might just cost us with the commentator's curse. But so far, good racing throughout most of the field, and you can see what is pretty typical of Indianapolis in the sense of you see different groups of cars, different packs together, and that's typical of what these large tracks do. You sort of separate from someone, but you're always going to be stuck together with someone else, and right now they're usually in groups of 5 or 6 that you're stuck with. The top 2 have spread away. Launsauger now in third, sort of holding up a train here with these other cars while he has slight damage to his. There you see the 99 looking to the inside of Austin Bloom. He's going to go to the inside. Bloom goes way up the track. You don't want to be that far up the racetrack, but he's going to try and hold his own on that outside. But if the 99 can make the move here by turn 2, he should be in a pretty good spot. And it looks like he also has some rear bumper damage there. The rear bumper's pushed in a bit.
He does, and I gotta
figure
if that might be a piece of damage from the restart. Is there 3 wide right behind him? The 78 of Brian Smith gonna take it 3 into turn 3. He's gonna get 2 birds in 1 stone. He's gonna most likely take over the position over Bloom. Certainly gets it over the 34 of Hill, as Benson also tries the advantage in a 3 and 4. He's gonna try and duck his nose underneath Hill. He's gonna get there side by side, door to door between the 2. That has broken up the little duo that was Smith and Benson. So now it's broken them up. A little bit of a buffer between these guys. But I think, like you mentioned there, in Indianapolis and tracks like these, even with the drafting package, the fact that you're always going to have somebody there. Even if it's 1, 2 cars, you're going to have somebody either behind you or in front of you, and you can use that draft. And then in this kind of case, it's about 5 to 6 cars that are in a group all together. They have the draft, and they're kind of sticking together. But they're pretty much watching this top 2 walk away. It's now 3.3 seconds between your race leader and Craig Launsauger in P3, so you have to imagine that these guys could probably try and work together in this long line of draft instead of trying to battle for every single position, because that can only make things worse time-wise.
Yeah, if you continuously battle with someone, especially on the straightaways, you just lose too much time, and it's not worth it most of the time. I feel like the only time you should really be seriously battling with someone at this track is if it's for the lead, and right now there is none. But right now the battle here is between the 78, Brian M. Smith, on slightly newer tires, trying to see if he can take advantage of him and drive his way to the front and gain some track position. It was just a little bit of a difference in tires, Kenneth, but talked about before the race how Indianapolis has a lot of tire wear, and we also have discussed in the early forms the other races that we've had earlier on in the season, how with iRacing and the tire model, that advantage stays there the entirety of the run. Now, the amount in which it gains you starts to lessen, but there's going to be a constant gain there, a constant advantage of having those fresher tires. And right there you see he's going to poke it to the inside. The 99 is going to give him a little bit of room for him to navigate. clips that curve a little bit, but that's going to give him enough turn to really get a solid run. And the 99 gives him the spot, tucks in, does not want to be side by side.
All right, good decision there by the 99 of Forster. Too early in this race. Don't want to make anything too drastic. Don't want to make too many risks early on. Let him by for the moment. I'll catch you later when the race starts to progress further and further throughout. So Smith now on his trot to P4. I'm going to probably target the 13 Alonsager as he's only about a tenth or so away from that 13. Probably take that point away and then be sights set right now on these top two leaders. And remember, Smith is the defending winner at this track. Last season, after a bold strategy call compared to the rest of the field, he was able to leapfrog everybody in the final section of the race and win. And that was part of, I believe, his 3 to 4 wins that season at many different disciplines, on the road courses, on the mile and a halves, at the super speedways, you name it. He was a driver that was pretty much dynamic at every single track we visited that season. And there's a little bit of pressure here on Brian M. Smith because the last couple of times we've seen him perform. However, either things have not gone his way or unfortunately he's been DNF'd and decided to kind of step away and not able to really complete the races, which could have gone to race wins in his column. I think tonight could be the big difference here, especially if it stays green on the strategy point where the 78 can try to use that pressure to his advantage and maybe be able to put himself in a shot to win this race.
I think from the moment he saw this track on the schedule, especially this early, he had it circled up knowing that this was going to be a major advantage for him after having that very dominant race last season and having that strategy worked out for him. I'm not sure if Reedy had an issue off turn 2. It looked like he might have lost a little bit of time, not too much time, but he was about half a second behind the leader. Now he looks to be about 8 or 9 tenths behind the leader at this point in the run. But right now it looks like Brian M. Smith trying to see if he can figure out a way past the 13 of Craig Lonsanger. If he's able to do that, he's able to set his eyes on those two that have been top two for most of the race to this point. And there you see Brian behind the 13, unable to get close enough to make a move quite yet. And that's the struggle with trying to pass here on older tires. It's not so much that the tires themselves are not letting them pass. It's just the dirty air disturbs you even more with worn tires, and the draft is unable to make up for it at this point in the run, unlike earlier in the run.
It's exactly what I pointed out a little bit earlier, is that at a track like this, you want to make the passes early, and you don't want to have to deal with this so late in a run when the tires are starting to fall off. And even with Smith's tire advantage, it's not as big, and especially with the way that he's been passing a lot of these cars, he could have probably burned up his stuff a little bit earlier, so that advantage might be pretty much neutralized to a guy like the 13 who has not pitted all race long. And we'll see exactly if the 78 can stick with Lonsager and maybe be able to make this pass. They've separated themselves from guys like Colin Forster, Kyle Benson, and the 27 of Austin Bloom, respectively, throughout about 5th, 6th, and 7th on the racetrack, and then you have to get a couple of seconds before you find a very big group. The 34, Lance Hill, with a big push from the 4 of Adam Alshire, but he gets turned by Woolley, collects Banks and Bazzuti. Caution flag waves for good reason.
And we just switched that at the right time, and you can see that unfold, and almost another hit there after the cars are slowing down. Brandon T. Banks with a hard hit to the outside wall, has big front end damage. There you see the 69 of Woolley, also trouble. We saw Adam Alshire. There you see his car involved in an incident here. And turn 1, or just before turn 1, those 200 feet between the start-finish line and turn 1 today has not been pretty yet. And I was just getting ready to talk about pit strategy because we were close to having to make green flag pit stops. But looking at this lap count, Kenneth, we find ourselves in a similar situation as we did last season.
We certainly do, but I think that'll give the break for many of the drivers now that were probably worrying about pit stops to now go down pit road under yellow flag conditions, not have to worry too much. Take a look at this. It was this push right here, the 4 giving the 34 shove, not necessarily any harm, but kind of just moving up the racetrack, I guess trying to get some visibility out of the front windshield. You see him give a push. It wasn't necessarily a bad shove to the 34, but then kind of goes down. 69 kind of goes up to side draft, and then they both get collected. Obviously, unfortunately, getting both the 75 and the 88 in this as well. Right on board with Bazzuti as this happens in turn 1.
Yeah, a lot of trouble there, and not many people happy in the chat right now. A lot of discussion going on as to what happened there, namely between the two that started it. But the innocent bystanders, Brandon T. Banks and Nicholas Bazzuti, nothing much they can do there.
good news for guys like Banks is that he has not burned off his fast repair, although he did take a tow because his engine was completely shot after that impact. So Brandon Banks is getting that repair right now. You see him on pit road. He's already 1 lap down and could be looking on going multiple laps down, unfortunately, after an early hit. We'll see everybody else, though, go down pit road. That's TJ Bursky, your race leader. Austin Breedy is, I believe, going to take the motive to stay out on this sequence. Meanwhile, everybody else is going to hit pit road. One's going to hit the yellow pit cone on the way there, but it seems as though the zoo is absolutely full. They're ready for feeding time.
I'm wondering what the 11 plans on doing here, him staying out under this caution. I'm not sure what part of strategy that might be. I'm not sure if he has a specific amount of stops he's trying to complete, but it's definitely going to be very troublesome for him on the restart with these older tires. But we'll just have to see who has clean time getting into their stall, clean time getting out there. You see the left side's going up on that 94, and he should keep the lead off pit road. Actually, he's going to sit there for a bit. He might have a penalty, Kenneth.
There might be a penalty issued, and he's actually going to disconnect completely. So TJ Bursky, again, after an early good start, is just going to DNF tonight, disconnect after the first pit stop of, or rather the second pit stop of the evening on our second caution. That'll hand the lead over, of course, to Austin Reedy, but it'll hand the lead off pit road to the 13 of Craig Lounsarger, who, mind you, did not take a fast repair on pit road. Still see some of that right crinkle damage. I believe he doesn't think it's too necessary to repair right now early on in this race. But I guess two different interesting developments here, Francisco. You have the race leader. At one point, he's disconnected, and the 11 of Austin Reedy, who was aimed to go down pit road, he's going to stay out on the oldest tires of the field.
In hindsight, if you were the 11, you could have pitted there and come out with the lead because he was way out in front with the likes of that 94. So I'm not sure if he's actually going to come in this time. He's on that access road, and he just might. So I'm not sure what happened for him to make this last-second decision and pit with pits closed. That's going to lose him all the track position.
That's going to lose him a lot of time. So I'm not sure whether that was a second-guess decision or what have you, or maybe the 11 just miscommunicated and did not get to pit road in time, but the 11 is going to hit pit road this lap. That'll give the lead to the 13. Line up Brian M. Smith to the outside of row 1. Kyle Benson to the inside of row 2 with Colin Forster there as well. There's Brandon Banks. He finally gets repairs, and he's out of pit road with that fast repair employed, although he is already 2 laps down. But I think the good news for him is that if we get more yellows, then Banks could get the wave rounds. He's really the only car a lap down that's on the track. TJ Bursky's 1 lap down, but he's already disconnected, so I don't believe we're going to be seeing him anytime soon returning to the racetrack. Hopefully we do, but this will line things up, and I guess this played into the hands of guys like Smith and Benson. They got involved in that first wreck into turn 1, and they got the fast pairs, and now they're back in this game.
Yep, and after being involved in that first lap incident, as you mentioned, they really have to watch their cars. Drivers around them, like the 13, like that 99, like the 27, like the 34, they still have a fast repair there in case anything happens. But the 78 and the 10, they have to be careful when doing anything because they don't have that leniency, that backup plan of just putting on that fast repair and getting a brand new race car as a fail-safe if something were to happen. They had to use that on lap 1. So for them, it's basically like driving a real car in the sense that they have to take absolute care of it. If not, that could spell the end of their night. But this is a big opportunity for those two, Kyle Benson and Brian M. Smith. They find themselves in the top 3. We'll just have to see if they can get to the top 2 positions and what they can do about it. Those are 2 of the strongest drivers we saw last season, especially in this race. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the same case now with a reset of the race and with TJ Burst disconnected.
Brian Smith, defending winner. He's going to be looking for the 13 to kick things off on this next restart, our second restart of the evening. It'll come at lap 29. You see Banks hitting pit road with the pace car, but the entire field doubled up and going up the gears as the 13 of Craig Lounsarger hits the green flag once again from Indy.
And there you can see immediately trying to defend from Brian M. Smith, making sure he can't get to either side of that 13 car, trying to use the dirty air against him. Brian M. Smith, look at how far to the inside he went to try and find some grip. He's going to try and move going into turn 2. Those two are going to be side by side, and that's going to invite everybody else behind him. He actually hits the curb there a little bit too much. He might be under attack here from Kyle Benson, who decides to stick back for now.
A couple of cars wobbled out of turn 1, but it seems to be okay for the most part. Smith is going to die off that run. He's going to tuck back in with the 13, probably set this up for turns 3 and 4. And the front straightaway, he's going to have his nose underneath once again. Doubled up. The entire field goes to the top 10. Back to 3 and 4 for the first time on this restart. And the 78 of Brian Smith back to the race lead in the front straightaway.
A big dive bomb there going into turn 3. And look at Craig Lonsdorfer now. He's going to try and get a run. He's to the outside now of Brian M. Smith. I believe Brian trying to cover that just barely does so. The 13 lets him off to let him in line. So Brian M. Smith picks up where he left off last season and finds himself back out front. And look how much he's able to pull away through turn 1. He's just struggling with that dirty air and that little bit of damage. You have to wonder if this is the damage on the 13 that's costing him a little bit of time right now. They see Colin Forster and Lance Hill battling for that 4th spot. Everybody's snaking down the back straightaway trying to gain an advantage.
And it has brought everybody together. Well, that leaves Smith just running away with the lead. But Benson can be the next driver to strike as everybody about still looking for every single position to keep themselves through. Still side by side between Lance Hill and the 99 of Colin Forster. You see Michael Woolley involved in an incident earlier tonight. He got his fast repair. He's now underneath the 27 of Austin Bloom. And you see everybody snake trailing, or at least the top 3 doing so. The guy's too wide, not going to fall for that trick. And Kyle Benson now going to look to chase down your race leader. And Smith, the defending checkered flag holder in this race, already about halfway through this event. And he's about a couple car lengths ahead.
And these two have constantly found themselves at the front, and here they are once again. You always have to talk about Brian M. Smith and Kyle Benson when it comes to these races. Both were fast in this race last season. Both are almost usually fast at any racetrack. But now it's a chess match. Now that Kyle knows the kind of strategy the 78 pulled here last season to win this race, he can sort of use that to his advantage so that it's not deja vu once again. We went green about 5 or so laps ago, and they pitted about 7 laps ago. Look at Kyle Benson with a big run off that corner trying to see if he can take the lead. But knowing that they pitted about 7 laps ago, they can probably go another 25 laps before they have to come down pit road. If they pit within that time, that'll put them right around splitting this race, maybe going a little bit longer now and leaving that last run towards a little bit on the longer side. So no, not quite the 2-stop strategy that is necessary, but as we saw Brian M. Smith, if you do choose to employ that, it can work. And depending if you have the track position to do it, it's going to help. No fuel mileage whatsoever unless we get a caution that comes out with about 35 to go.
And you got to imagine at the same time that looking at last season's race, guys like Craig Lonsdorfer, guys like Kyle Benson, they had to take the hard way lesson from what happened in the previous race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where they took a strategy all together in their own group, but then they just saw the 78 absolutely blow by them on the alternate strategy to win that race. So you have to think that these guys probably had that in the memory banks and probably can say, hey, if it goes to this distance, if it goes to a strategy, I know what Smith did. I know exactly what he pointed out to win this race. So maybe I could use the same strategy or take another route and be able to throw him off his game, be able to keep him in check, and be able to keep him honest at the front of this field instead of pulling away and being able to nag another race win and what will be his first so far in Season 4. You see him all the way working the back straightaway, just trying to break any draft that he has with Kyle Benson, although it seems to not be working at all as the 10 of Benson continues to reel him in, just yet to make that pass.
Yeah, and we have to see what either one is going to do. I think if they stay this far apart between each other for the next portion of this run, you could see one of these guys maybe blink, and it'll most likely be the 10 if he were to blink first. Look at Brian M. Smith all the way to the inside wall, below that little white line that is on the inside of the racetrack trying to break this draft. There's a lot of dirt down there, so you might want to be careful going down there. But if Kyle Benson decides that he wants to try a different strategy to come down pit road, it could happen in about 10 or so laps, so he can stop twice and take advantage of new tires, knowing that he doesn't have to worry about tire saving. He can just push like hell to try and catch up to 78, who's trying all sorts of defensive measures right in front of him. So if he can try this 2-stop strategy, it could work, especially if they're able to get far enough in front of the field to where they spread out. And that puts him in a position where passing should be a little bit easier than it is at this point in the run. But we'll have to see as this race unfolds if that becomes the case.
We'll definitely have to see. We have not reached a first segment of green flag pit stops because of that yellow that kind of spliced things in the middle. We were going to have green flag pit stops if we had stayed green, although obviously because of that crash in the front straightaway involving Adam Alishire and a handful of others, then obviously put them behind the 8-ball. You see a pass here, Adam Alishire. Speaking of him, he's going to make the move to the inside.
got in the grass.
Tyler Murray got into the grass at the entrance of turn 1. Was able to keep it straight after almost wadding it up to the outside safer barrier, although he's going to be under fire from CJ Munier. And Murray's going to keep that position he currently holds, P12.
Yeah, a bit of a moment there going into turn 1. Turn 1 has not been pretty today, has it?
It has not. It started as soon as they got to the first corner on the first lap of this race. And it seems to be a trouble spot. But I'm not gonna fault these guys for kind of noting it as a trouble spot just because you're carrying so much speed. And you could say the same thing for turn 3, Francisco, just because obviously you have big, heavy stock cars. These cars have a good amount of power. Not the 750 horsepower package that we have at the short tracks, but it's still 550 horsepower. You're still going rather quick going into turn 1. And then you have to carry this 3,300-pound stock car around that corner with not a lot of banking. And you have to check the car up, especially when the tires start to fall off and you have no grip. So turns 1 and 3 can definitely be trouble spots if you're trying to just carry as much speed as possible while trying to maintain an arc. And we've seen many drivers either get loose or have a little bit of trouble, and we saw that on the recent restart with many drivers getting a little wobbly out of the corner. But I think the good thing is we haven't had a spin yet out of turn 1 on the short chute specifically.
Yeah, and right now what you're seeing is these top two, they're about 2 car lengths apart, and they've really been this way for most of the run. If you're Kyle Benson, this is quite frustrating. You try and use the straightaway to draft. You see the 78 weaving. That also uses up the tires just a little bit. Not going to affect them entirely. It's not going to bring them back to the rest of these cars behind them, but it is going to create a disadvantage. And if you're the 10, the draft matters, but if you can save your tires a little bit and maybe then snake trail in a 5 laps time, it might give you enough momentum in these corners to where you can possibly go for a move. So it's about saving the tires at the right time and then deciding to go and make a move. So you have to back off, cool a little bit, let him do these defensive procedures before you can go on the offensive and attack him.
Well, Benson is still trying to make this move on Brian M. Smith, but to no avail as of lap 37, aiming close to our halfway mark. And as everybody's revved up right now, we'll rev things up here on MaxSpeedTV as we go crank it up. the sounds from the in-car cameras and how tense it is to drive at a track like Indianapolis Motor Speedway with these cars. You're still looking at what is a close fight for the race lead. He took on board a couple times with both Brian M. Smith and Kyle Benson, and the passes have not been made for that first spot. In fact, Benson has actually lost a little bit of ground to the driver of the 78. There was a little bit of a battle behind there. You saw the 13 to 34 in it, but 34 of Lance Hill lost some ground. That's going to give the option to Austin Bloom in the 27 to move by. So make that for the top 5 position. And continues to be strung out race as we approach halfway. And as we're already halfway, we'll take a look at our race summary as of the cross flags of this event. Still 39 laps to go, so if we stay green, telemetry tells us we're about 34 minutes shy of our checkered flag. We've only had 2 cautions. Our first one to open the race in turn 1, and our second one after our first semi-long green flag run, and involved, I believe, Michael Woolley, Adam Alishire, a couple others. We've had 3 caution laps, and we've had a total of 5 lead changes. Francisco, if there's anything you're noting from what we've so far viewed from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and how the field is kind of operated under these conditions, what can you really take away at the cross-section of this event to try and work forward to the next section?
I feel like we've seen exactly what Indianapolis brings when it comes to these NASCAR Cup cars, that we have a lot of spreading out, but in that same spread out nature, we have little packs of people. We see a car actually exiting pit road. That was Woolley there, who just exited pit road. Not sure if this is a strategy move on his part. We see actually another car, Cody Kinsley, also in on pit road. So we might see if some people are considering that 2-stopper on this run here that we're going to get. I did mention this a little bit earlier, that if you're going to pit for 2 stops, you should probably do it around lap 45 so you can really punish the tires and take advantage of those new ones and make up the time loss for that extra pit stop. But we'll see if anybody else closer to the front of the field decides to do it. We'll see if that guy right there, the 10 of Kyle Benson, decides to implement that strategy. He's been stuck behind Brian M. Smith for several laps now, unable to really get close enough to make a move, so he might try something different in case he has to go for this win in a different style. You see in the 3rd position, it by himself really has been the 99 of Colin Forster, the 2-time defending race winner. He's done solid here, been quiet, but he has been up front. Craig Lonsonger carrying a little bit of damage in that 4th spot with Austin Bloom behind him. They're trying to see if they can get away from those 2 behind them, which is Lance Hill and Tyler Warner in that 7th spot. Then you have to go a long way back to go to the next place car of Adam Alishire there in the 8th position, AJ Green behind him in 9th, and then you see a swarm of cars behind CJ Munier. That's in 10th and just outside for the top 10's position. So a lot of cars under fire for these teams' positions.
And this is actually a battle for position. P14 on the track. Tyler Murray defending against Dustin Webb. They have Nicholas Suzuki, Ken MacArthur, and then, of course, Michael Newbraw behind them. This is all for track position right now. Apart from, I believe, Woolley, who's just trying to get back to the lead lap. You see him getting around the 97. He's going to try to get around, I believe, is the 22. Or actually, I believe not the 22s. You see the 93 continues to stay on pit road, so not exactly sure if there was a penalty issued or what have you. As Murray tries to go back for the offense on the inside of Zudi. He's going to have the nose underneath. He made that pass complete. Almost got into him on the way there in the short shoot, but they're going to be okay. But at this moment, I think you're probably going to look for green flag pit stops. Of course, this outlier was Michael Woolley and Cody Kinsey. Although Kinsey has not returned to the track, it's mostly just been Woolley who's executed this strategy. So as of lap 19 on a stint, you may want to be looking towards a potential green flag pit stop and how you're going to split this race. Again, we've seen about 20 to 30 laps probably with these Cup cars and 75% fuel capacity here at Indianapolis. Go about that range in the fuel window, so we could end up seeing a potential 2-stopper, or if anyone can save fuel at the moment, Francisco, it'll most likely be 1-stop, although right now it kind of looks out of reach.
It doesn't seem like saving fuel is going to impact the strategy or not. It's going to be 1-stop for everybody. I think everybody still has at least another 10 laps they can go on fuel, and if they do, that should put them safely within range. We saw guys go 28 to 30 laps last season. That's no different this time around. So no fuel problems really this time around, so no fuel mileage unlike last season. But it'll really just come down to, do you want to use tires to your advantage? And if you wanted to do 2 stops, you probably should have pitted sometime in the last 3 or 4 laps and really start putting some lap times down and start making some ground up for that extra stop you're going to be making. We saw Brian M. Smith, he pitted last season around the lap 44 mark, I want to say, before coming in again on lap 56 or 57 or close to lap 60, and he was really able to make use of those tires and was able to get past for the lead 5 laps after his pit stop. So if somebody were to have tried to do that, it could have worked. So we'll have to see if somebody tries to do that. If no one does it, I will be surprised, because it was a very valiant strategy last season, and I'm pretty sure the fuel mileage had a lot to do with it. A lot of drivers were going very slow to try and save some fuel, but you can't discount the advantage that it gave Brian M. Smith with those brand new tires.
You can't discount it at all, and that's referring back to the point of just taking the notes out of what Brian M. Smith did to take away that win, the strategy that he used to get there. And you got to think that many of the drivers who have participated in kind of the losing side, they're including guys like Lance Sarger and Benson, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, then obviously it makes things a lot different on that end as well. But the last time we hit Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it was actually back in June. Of course, it was race 20 of the season, and there were the same amount of laps. It was an 80-lap race. So again, if you're looking for the Brian M. Smith strategy, then it still could be in the cards, just because we're about this part in the race. However, I believe there were more cautions than there were, at least one more caution before that race was said and done. It was 3 cautions in that race. It's been 2 so far tonight. So we're probably looking at the same trajectory that race happened last season. Although we're just going to see how the strategy plays out as the drivers hit 22 laps on their stint, and Smith continues to lead. He's grown the lead to about half a second.
I think if Benson wants a chance at passing the 78, he has to come in first. Whether it's a lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, whatever the case is, he has to come in before that 78 if he wants to try and make up that gap. If he pits just 1 lap before, that'll be enough time on those new tires to make up that half a second that he's been behind the entirety of this run. So I'm not sure if it'll be this time or sometime soon, but you don't want to pit too early. If you pit too early, you might just put yourself in a fuel mileage situation you don't want to be. As you saw at Lions Hill have a moment off turn 3, almost collecting that 13 of Craig Lonsonger, probably struggling with these older tires. You can see some damage on the right front. That tire sticking out just a little bit. And behind them, you see Woolley, who had just made a pit stop about 5 laps ago, trying to see if he can make up the gap and unlap himself.
And the 34 of Lance Hill, we talked about him in the first 2 races, kind of a show-out rookie. And this is his first season in 4-wide racing competition. So, of course, we welcomed him at Auto Club 2 weeks ago. He's done a marvelous job of being very consistent and competitive with some of the veterans in this series. And I think that Lance Hill could probably be on par to taking away a race win, as behind him, a little bit wobbly, went Daytona winner last season, the 34 Tyler, or the 33 rather, Tyler Warner. And under the outside wall, had to chase it back down to the white line. Luckily, he's okay. But to Lance Hill, one of those drivers, much like, I guess you can say the same thing for guys like Colin Forster, Austin Bloom, the rookies in this series, that we probably didn't expect them to be as performative as the legends and the pretty much the guys who have been around this series for a while. And they've done a good job of getting some good points and putting themselves in positions to win.
And the namely one has been Colin Forster, right? He's won both the races that we've done this season. He's running in that 3rd spot. So if there's any rookie to really look at in this Cup Series that has been it, if you will, has been this 99 of Colin Forster.
Exactly. He's been that rookie to take the first position away on the last lap 2 races in a row. And to win 2 races in a row as a rookie is kind of way off the strategy, or way off kind of the expectations we have for a series. But to do it in the same fashion 2 weeks in a row with green white checkers, with a last lap pass
at such different tracks.
At different tracks too. You had the Super Speedway, 2 miles at Auto Club, and then you had a full 1 mile at the Phoenix Raceway. Just 2 different, very completely venues. And then you have the 99 doing the same thing twice to end up taking 2 checkered flags. And I believe we've had our first stop down pit road for lead lap drivers. The 10 of Kyle Benson, the 33 of Tyler Warner down pit road.
This is exactly what he had to do, Kenneth. I called it. He had to come in first to try and ensure that he can try and beat the 70 out. You saw right there, he had to back up a little bit, overshot his stall just a little bit. We'll have to see just how much time that's going to cost him in the long run. If the 78 stays out another lap, that could still work out for the 10. But undoubtedly, he's going to lose time in that. There you see the 8 of Tyler Murray, who's coming into his stall just as, oh my God, I think they went inside each other. Lucky there that they were still in the pit stall for iRacing to register that and ghost them through each other. That could have potentially been a little bit of damage. Brian M. Smith is going to stay out another lap, probably trying to go as long as he can on fuel.
That's only 3 cars that hit pit road. Actually 4, given Dustin Webb. He also hit pit road as well. He's out, so you see him there, the 73 coming into 3 and 4. That Ford Mustang off and away. So only a handful of drivers did decide to go down pit road. But there's the trigger. More drivers going to head down this time by. Give it to Austin Bloom. You see Lance Hill, AJ Green, Adam Alishire. They are all down the pit lane for service. And I believe that does include a 99 of Colin Forster as well, who was sitting P3.
Many of these drivers have decided that it is time to come down pit road now. But you can see on the left side of your screen on that ticker, we still have Brian M. Smith leading this race as he goes through turn 3 now into the short chute. And we have Craig Lautensager in second, Eric Schaefer down in third, CJ Munier, Nicholas Vasuzzi, who's had his share of troubles right now, running 5th, still has not come down pit road. And there's Brian M. Smith, decides to come down pit road 2 laps later than Kyle Benson decided to do. If we can try and find where Kyle Benson is, as there you see Craig Lautensager, Brian M. Smith right now is about halfway down pit road, almost. And Kyle Benson now is just coming out of turn 2. It's going to be really close between those, despite the mistake made by the 10. So we'll have to monitor just where these two come out relative. There's the 78 going into his stall right now. The jacks are starting to go up. I think Benson's now coming through turn 3, exit of 3 potentially. We'll have to see just how these wind out, Kenneth. This is going to be really close.
It is going to be very close. There's the 10 going into 3 and 4. For the next time by to complete lap 55. 78's already on his way out. It's just how big the speed difference is going to be between the two.
I think Benson's going to get him.
78's going to be there. Benson to the front straightaway. And as the 78 of Smith picks up the speed, Kyle Benson is going to take over the top spot, net P1. There's still a couple drivers yet to hit for service tonight. Eric Schaefer being one of them, so he's in your race lead right now. CJ Munier is right behind him. Ken MacArthur and Michael Newbraw, along with Ricky Rosner. These guys have not decided to hit pit road, although we may end up seeing them coming down pit road very shortly. These top 2 not going to hit pit road. Neither is MacArthur. Neither is Newbraw. It's going to be up to Ricky Rosner as whether he's going to hit pit road, and the answer is still going to be no. So that's going to move Kyle Benson to the top of this field, but the question is, how long does this last? It's a 2-lap difference. Benson's got a little bit older tires than the driver of the 78, so could we see Brian M. Smith catch back up to the 10 and give him a run for his money?
And look who's right behind Brian M. Smith, Colin Forster, who has newer tires than Kyle Benson by 1 lap. So the 78 had to have had some sort of trouble going onto pit road. Probably took it too easy. Also, not to mention the fact that he did pit later, so he lost time to both of those guys. Colin Forster now trying to see if he can keep up with the 78 and try and make it a 3-car battle for the lead. I don't doubt that Brian M. Smith can catch up to Kyle Benson up in that race lead. He's already making inroads with those 2-lap better tires. It's not going to be much as we have more pit stops here. You see CJ Munier, Eric Schaefer in. We have another driver coming in further behind them. Is the 97 of Ken MacArthur. I don't doubt that Brian Smith can catch up to Kyle Benson. The thing is, if he can get up there, can he go around him? Because we saw Kyle Benson struggle to pass him. Now there's a little bit of an advantage on the 78 side from here on out, as long as he doesn't burn them up. But it's going to be interesting if he can make the move. And now it's up to Kyle Benson. Given the track position, he has to defend now.
It is still rather close on the tire strategies as well, because if you look at guys like Colin Forster, even Austin Bloom behind them, it's 3 laps for Forster and Bloom on their tires, and it's only 2 for Brian M. Smith. So it's about a lap difference, but it's not going to be that big of a difference. You see Forster still kind of able to hang in with Smith, although the gap has kind of increased. So it's going to stay very close between all 3 of these guys before this race is all said and done. And for Benson, it's just going to be all about whether he can save his tires the right way and be able to keep himself steady for the next 24 laps or so at the end of this event. You see Ricky Rosner, P2, he's down pit road. Michael Newbraw also going to hit pit, so that's going to allow Benson to cycle back to the race lead. And you said it there, Francisco, the key for track position was going to be pitting at least a lap ahead of Brian Smith. He did just that, and now he's in control of this race.
And Brian Smith is starting to gain a little bit, but it's going to be inch by inch each and every lap. So by the time that he does get to the back bumper of this 10 car, it's up to Kyle Benson to try and defend. But notice who's in front of him, Brandon T. Banks, who had made a stop a couple of laps ago. That's some lap traffic that the 10's got to deal with. Very helpful in the straightaways, not helpful down here.
especially in the corners. That's going to give way to a lot of either tight or loose conditions out of the 10. We've seen a couple drivers get tight on the older tires. Most notably, Lance Hill was a driver that we saw almost scrub the outside wall a handful of times throughout, especially the short shoots. That's where it's been the biggest issue, because you're trying to carry so much speed throughout that midsection before you get to the next corner. And then obviously you have to set up for the next corner, and things change dramatically behind the wheel of that race car. And Benson still trying to hold strong, but it is still 1.3 seconds between Benson and where Smith lies right now. And actually a little bit faster went Smith, about 0.2 of a difference that last time by, while Forster was actually a little bit slower than Smith but faster than Benson. So it's an interesting categorization, as there's a 27 Austin Bloom. He's going to strike the outside wall. That's not going to help his case.
Yeah, trying to see if he can get in that 4th spot, and Austin Bloom in a very comfortable 4th spot, really. He's losing ground to those 3 in front of him, but he is over 4 seconds ahead of AJ Green in the 5th position. And there's a big gaggle of cars behind AJ Green, including Craig Lonsonger, Tyler Warner, Lance Hill. They're all in a big battle for that top 5 position. So the top 4 have really pulled away, but top 3 in particular, they've gone away from this 4th place driver. So for him, if he can stay there ahead of those behind him, that's a solid 4th place that I think Austin Bloom will be happy to take.
And as a rookie, to finish P4, I mean, for Colin Forster, obviously it was a P1. So you can't really... Twice. You can't get better than P1. But to start off a season, you know, you're not coming with the expectations to win most of the time. If you're entering a series as a rookie, unless you know categorically that you're better competition-wise between the rest of the field. But if you're kind of just hanging in, you want to have some fun in the series, for a first race, you just want a good finish. Most of the time, you just want to survive. Some drivers want to be very competitive. Some drivers want to push it as hard as they can to see how they stack up to the guys who have been in this series for a while. And then you just kind of have the approach of, okay, if I've got a good position, why am I going to waste it? Why am I going to push it too hard against guys that are more experienced in this series, who have better times competing against the guys who you're running against right now, who have raced against those competitors and know what they drive like, know how they are over short and long runs, how they maneuver their car, what their driving style is like. And as a rookie, you go into that series completely blind as to all those factors. So then to have a P4 coming out of the night, especially now with 20 laps to go and where he sits right now, 27 of Austin Bloom could very well come away with a very good position in P4. I think that's something to be happy about when you come to Daytona.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, Kenneth, what it's like to race people just before we get this battle for the lead, I think it's a good time to announce that I'll actually be joining these guys on the racetrack at the Homestead Miami Speedway well over a month from now. So it'll be a fun time to drive in my home track, our home track, and try and see what it's like to race these guys for a one-off. But that's besides the point. We'll talk about that in the coming times. Brian M. Smith has caught up to Kyle Benson, and he is now going to challenge for the race win with 20 laps to go.
20 to go. This time by from Indianapolis, and it is Brian Smith finally on the charge. We were questioning how big the tire difference was going to matter and the impact for the race lead. It was rather significant, but still a run out of turn 2, side by side for the race lead, as Smith going to attack on the 10. Can he get it to turn 3?
Kyle Benson trying to side draft just a little bit. Can he get an advantage going into 3? Smith is going to clear him before he gets the chance. So Brian M. Smith, 20 laps to go, takes the lead from Kyle Benson. That is deja vu.
And it is deja vu indeed. Last time we visited the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, of course, Brian M. Smith was the winner, but the winning passes came around this time. 20 laps to 15 laps to go, and by 19 to go, the 78 holds control of the race lead as Benson now continues to fall off. A 4/10 difference between the two give the advantage so far to Brian Smith.
And now it's up to Brian M. Smith to keep tires under him, start to build a gap on that 10. He is in control right now. And now it's time to start ticking off the laps, trying to get to the finish. And if you're the 10 of Kyle Benson, how tough can it be? You pitted a lap for 2 earlier, and it really worked out. It gave you the track position, but really had a struggle off turn 2, and that did not give him that great of a position to defend, at least for longer. It did not give him that amount of time he needed possibly to defend against that 78. That 78 with those newer tires had an advantage, but he also has had the slightly faster car for most of the evening. There we see 2 drivers now battling for that 4th spot. We see, for the 5th spot, actually AJ Green, Craig Lonsonger now trying to catch up to him. That is actually for the 5th position right there. Craig Lonsonger on, I believe he's on some slightly newer tires. He's going to try and make a move now to the inside of AJ Green going into turn 1.
He's one lap fresher than the competitor that he's at right now with AJ Green, but he's actually on par, pitted the same time as Brian Smith, your race leader. And now there goes Lonsarger. He did also burn his fast repair, so you don't really see damage on the right front anymore. Use this opportunity on pit road under green flag circumstances to burn off the fast repair for about 2 seconds. And now he's got a completely clean race car in the final leg of this event. He continues to try and side draft the 48. Not able to make the pass in the first section of corners. Going to go to the second half of the racetrack with optimism and going to make this pass complete. So move the 13 of Craig Lonsarger to the front of the field. Gap, though, for the race lead has extended 1.5 seconds between Smith and Benson. And that leaves who else but Colin Forster on the charge.
Colin Forster probably not going to be able to catch up to that 78, knock on wood, that any sort of crazy things happen in these closing laps, but he is catching your second place man right now. And Kenneth, if he's able to get 3 top twos to start the season, I think there's no way better that you could start the season off as a rookie. And it's been really impressive to watch him do this against names like this when you consider Brian Smith, Kyle Benson as the guys you're fighting against to get those results.
That'll be a very high average finish, 1-1 and 2 in the first 3 races. But we're still not out of it yet because 17 laps to go is still a long time, so anything can change within a matter of moments, although the projection right now is that Smith just continues to pull away. He's going to hit some lap traffic in just a little bit. You're right on board with his cockpit. And you see right there behind the wheel off the front windshield, there's a couple of cars to know to get around lap traffic-wise. So we'll see if those guys try to battle hard to keep Smith at bay or just going to let him by for the most part. I believe that's Brandon Gillis up ahead on the racetrack. You see him right there at the exit of turn 2. Brandon Banks, who's 2 laps down on the racetrack in 21st. He's also there as well. So within the next couple of sequences, we could see Smith in charge to take away both laps from these guys. And we'll see whether he has any trouble doing just that.
And how about this? It's a solid run for Brandon Gillis. He's not exactly had the best of luck on his side in most events, but tonight he's had a clean run, clean race car. I don't think he's had to use the fast repair. And right now, it looks like he's going to have a solid shot at finishing on the lead lap. So we'll have to see if he can hold off that 78. I don't know if he'll be able to with just given the amount of laps left. But a clean race for this 9 is exactly what he's needed.
And Gillis, especially after the unlucky, fortunate series of events that were in the first 2 races, along with a good section of last season, to have a clean race, to survive, I think would be very good for Brandon Gillis to take things step by step and be able to kind of maneuver his way through the Cup Series and hopefully be able to make a points charge. We haven't seen him win a race in 4-wide racing competition, so maybe soon enough we could see the 9 machine in prime position. But as of right now, he's the last car on the lead lap. There's your race leader, and he struck 15 laps to go. You can see the gap already at the entrance of turn 3. It is 4.4 seconds and growing.
And Kyle Benson's really starting to lose ground. Colin Forster's right behind him now, and don't look any further back. And there you see that 27 of Austin Bloom. Craig Lonsonger has moved up into that 5th position. We could see these 4 accordion up before the race is over.
However, with the tire fall off, we'll see if they end up banding together. Maybe could invite guys like Lonsarger and AJ Green if there is enough time. Although the gap is pretty significant at the moment to the point where I don't believe the 13 and the 48 respectively will be catching up. It's very much the positive side for the 27 of Austin Bloom because he's already in the attack of the 99. He's already put up faster laps than the driver of the 99. Last time by was a 55 flat. Comparative
look at
Forster's.
this. Got a big run.
And a big run there as Benson looks for the outside. Here comes Bloom and Colin Forster to take charge. And Bloom could go 2 for 1. Not going to utilize the inside to turn 3. He's going to tuck in and maybe wait for another time.
Benson loses 2 spots there on that occasion. Not a good series of corners for him. But look who has caught up to the group. Craig Lonsonger, who has a big run trying to catch up these guys. Had a moment, may have gotten into the wall there in turn 3, but regardless of that, he's made up over a second of time on this particular lap. So a big gain by that 13. He's going to be involved in this battle before the race is over.
And you can also invite AJ Green to the mix as well if they're able to tang in the draft. Although AJ Green is looking for a position of his own, he's going to go to the inside of the 13 in turn 1. With the 13 laps to go, we'll see AJ Green most likely take this away. Lonsarger gives it up at the entrance of the first corner back to the short chute. But a nice move there. Might have been a bobble there out of turn 4. Maybe just got really tight. We've seen that in many cars, Francisco, to the point where the car just continues to push up to the wall. And then you really have to get off the gas or maybe even tap the brake in order to get it off the wall. And I believe that might have what happened to the 10 of Kyle Benson. Had to really check it up the exit of 2, and that allowed these two to get by.
And Brian M. Smith has just absolutely pulled away. He's got a rocket on that thing in this last run of the race. He's pulled out over 8 seconds clear of his competition, really putting a beating and trying to see if he can improve on the margin of victory that he had last season, which was near 10 seconds. So Brian M. Smith, another great race from him here today. Not quite in the same fashion as last season, but regardless, he has shown once again that he is the man to beat here in this big Indianapolis Oval.
To take 2 race wins in a row at Indianapolis and to grab your first win this season. Last season, in the 4 wide racing competition in the Cup Series, Smith was not eligible to make the playoffs due to a minimum amount of starts, but he did capture a couple of wins that if he had made the eligible amount of starts for the series, he would have been a part of the playoffs and probably would have been a big force to be reckoned with. So right now, he's about 11 and a half laps shy of getting his first ever win this season and pretty much locking himself into the playoffs. As you watch Tyler Murray, currently running in P12. He was not able to make the race last night in the ARCA Series at Iowa, unfortunately, but good to see the 8 back on the racetrack and hopefully good enough to rack up a top 12 or maybe even a top 10 if he can catch up to both Adam Alishire and CJ Munier. But like you mentioned there, Francisco, the clinic is being put on by the 78 of Smith. He's gotten by a couple of lap cars, no issues, and about 10 and a half laps to go to victory.
And 10 and a half laps here is going to be very long. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 10-minute range, depending on what happens here in the closing laps. But right now, look, Kyle Benson trying to see if he can put back a fight against Austin Bloom. He's on the outside of him. There you see Colin Forster trying to help Bloom get a draft, and look behind them. AJ Green and Craig Lonsonger have joined this battle, trying a 5-car battle now for the second position has emerged.
Well, the accordion effect is in full song, coming to 10 laps to go as Austin Bloom gonna get by the 10 of Kyle Benson, and that's only gonna bring in the 13 and the 48. Saw the pass earlier by AJ Green to get around the 13 of Craig, but Craig was able to get around, and now he's going to take another position for his own. Going to go underneath the 10 of Kyle Benson as they head for the first corner. 48 of AJ Green's going to give him the shove. And it seems as though Kyle Benson is pulled off the anchor. He completely has lost about 4 to 5 positions in a matter of maybe 5 to 6 laps.
It's not been a good run of the race at this point from the second he lost the lead, and now he's outside the top 5, so it's not been the last run he's wanted. But look at that big moment for Austin Bloom. He's going to have to look in his mirror on this straightaway because that's going to give an opportunity for Craig Lonsonger to try and get by. We'll have to see if he makes a move. Doesn't seem like it, and that's actually AJ Green behind him because there's the 13 of Craig Lonsonger making a move to the inside of Austin Bloom. Kyle Benson trying to fight back against AJ Green. And there you see Woolley a lap down further behind this group, may have some slightly better tires than them. He's going to try and get around these guys.
13 of Craig Lounslager aiming to make a last 9-lap ditch effort to scoop up a top 3 before this race is said and done. He's going to tuck back in behind the 27 of Bloom. Not going to get the run. And they're slowly trying to catch up to Colin Forster, who has now since blown away from these guys by a couple of tenths. And he's still looking to gain around as Benson slips behind Green. They have now simmered back to single file. Gap, though, you can see how far it is. Turns 1 and 2 for most of the guys. It is turns 3 and 4 for Brian Smith, who will catch 8 laps to go from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 12 seconds, the gap.
He has a big lead, but I know he's hoping that they don't get too racy back there for that second spot, just so nothing happens. Because look at this big battle, a gaggle of cars that have started to stack up behind that 99. And this is going to be a big battle between now and the end of the race.
And there's Michael Woolley to the inside, about making it 3 wide. Benson tried to look underneath AJ Green, but to no success. And Woolley tried to make that move, but did inevitably back out. Woolley right now is 1 lap down, so he's not working for position. He's just working to unlap himself. That could pose a very big risk to these 2 guys, just trying to hold on in the final 8 laps in this race.
And that's going to play a factor into all these battles you're seeing out on the racetrack between guys battling for position. And Adrian Woolley, who in this case is not battling for position, right now has not elected to try and pass the 10 of Kyle Benson. But before you know it, it is going to be attempted before this race is over, because right now as Brian M. Smith crosses the line, it takes 7 laps to go. These guys are still in a heated battle, and it's not going to go away.
It has not gone away, and now Forster is under pressure from the 27 of Austin Bloom. Maybe give this 13 a shot as well. And Forster, who was just trying to pull away from this group, has now started to fall back, and the draft is starting to take place. And still single file, just trying to set up for each and every corner. I believe there was a pass right behind. You saw it at the top of your screen. That was the 33 of Warner getting around the 34 of Lance Hill. And so they're going to make those passes. They're going to be all right respectively. But Colin Forster may have a lot to worry about within the next couple laps because rookie Austin Bloom is on the charge.
And he's trying to see if he can take away an extra spot on the podium, but at the same time defend the one he already has with the fast-charging Craig Lonsonger behind them. Both these guys desperate. They want to be on the podium, but they know that guys behind them are faster and have a chance to take them both off of it. So they have to work together if they want to be on the podium together.
So you see it right there. Still very tight between second, third, fourth, and fifth. Maybe even give it to P6 if Kyle Benson can try and tail in together. But up at the front again, 12 seconds and growing between Smith, Forster, and the rest of the gang. And he'll be coming to 5 laps to go. He's entering turn 1 and 2. Going to exit turn 2 to the back straightaway. We're going to be looking for 5 laps left. And I think even in this case, Francisco, you're just looking to knock these laps down without any issue. Don't make any minuscule mistakes that could probably push you up to the wall and significantly impact your chances of winning. Can completely lose you the race altogether. We saw it in 2011, Indianapolis 500, the battle between the 4 of Hildebrand and the 98 of... And the 98 of, I believe, I can't really quite remember his name. Wow, I don't know why I can't remember his name. But did make the final pass on the outside.
And Weldon.
It was Dan Weldon. There it was. I was thinking of Justin Wilson, but it was not Justin Wilson that got the pass. It was Dan Weldon that made that pass after Hildebrand had completely smacked the outside wall at the exit of 4, trying to get around the lap machine. So for Smith, he just does not want to make any mistakes in the final 5 laps.
Even with these stock cars last season, the last time we ran on this oval with the cup cars, Denny Hamlin with 5 laps to go blew a tire going into turn 1 and a hard impact to the outside wall. So even with these cars, we've seen it before how anything can happen in the closing laps of a race that could really determine the end of the race. Though I don't think the 78 has to worry about blowing tires anytime soon. I think his main concern is that battle for second. If it heats up anymore, he's definitely going to be hoping to get to that white flag.
Well, it seemed to have calmed down as Forster continues to gain on Bloom. It was a short game, but probably a long-term loss here as the clouds come over the track, and now they're starting to cover it a little bit, which could help with some of the triple-digit track temperatures we've seen all day long. You see Brandon Gillis, the lap car. He's going to make way for Forster and the rest of the guys to go by on the front straightaway. And now with 4 laps to go, they're just looking to finish this race on a high note and keep it clean. Smith, still a couple of more lap cars ahead. That's Brandon Banks and the 97 of Ken MacArthur. And as for the 78, he continues to remain clean as you ride on board.
And it's been a flawless race, really, from the 78. He had that one trouble at the beginning of the race where he had to use the fast repair after starting in the rear of the field, Kenneth. But after that happened, he methodically passed all the cars he had to with those slightly better tires, and once that caution came out and he restarted on the front row, he was able to take full advantage of it, and now he is leading this race, has dominated, has shown himself as the fastest car besides TJ Burst before he disconnected, and is now 3 laps away from a potential second straight win at the Brickyard.
Looking for that second straight win, and as he crosses the line, 3 laps to go, but what do you have it? A caution comes out.
Woolley.
Gonna look for the incident on track. It's Michael Woolley in the 69.
He made contact with Brandon Gillis going into turn 4, and Woolley has spun going into turn 4, and that's what's brought out the yellow, Kenneth.
Woolley with heavy damage. Remember, he had used his fast repair after an early crash, and as Smith was just trying to hold on, we have an incident involving Brandon Gillis and Michael Woolley. Take a look at it.
This changes everything, Kenneth. We were sold on the fact that this was going to go green to the end, way up the track as well. And as they come off of turn 3, Brandon Gillis goes left into that right rear of the 69. I'm not sure if anything happened here beforehand. We'll have to see on board.
Right there.
Oh, big hit to the back of the 9. I'm pretty sure he did not expect him to check up that early, but then right here, the 9 just hooks a left.
Hooks a left, and probably not happy with what the 69 did, especially that late in the race to push him off the racetrack. You'll see it again different braking markers. 69 tried to send it just a little bit. He tried to make the arc down low to go underneath. He was just a little bit too late on that move. And then got into the 9's back bumper. And then from here on the short chute, Gillis did not have any of it. Decided to spin the 69. And then Wooly goes for a wild ride to the outside. Safer Bear, you see there's Warner, Benson, Lance Hill to go by. They're clean. But we have brought the field back together with 3 laps to go in position for a green-white checkered. Pit road is open, so we'll see who comes down. They're going to wait another set of corners to go down to pit road. We'll see who makes this click. But I believe, Francisco, everybody's going to take 4 tires. Not so much fuel, but more so tires.
Fuel does impact the handling of these race cars. The less fuel you'll have, the tighter the car is. And I'm pretty sure at this point in the race, you don't want a too tight of a race car, but you definitely want that handling aspect. And it looks like everyone is going to come down pit road. Brian M. Smith has a solid advantage over second place. Pete Bruni, a lapped car, really holding up the rest of the field.
He's going to be the buffer between the first and second place cars. And Smith is going to come down pit road. And with this advantage, it should give him the race lead. Barring any issues that he could have, he's going to stop to pit road, make a nice clean stop, no overshooting. And everybody's going to come down for 4 tires, some possible fuel. We could see 2 tires on the stop, Francisco, as well. So it's not like this is out of the question. We could see anybody pull off a 2-tire strategy and completely change the outlook of this race. But for now, seems to be 4 tires and fuel. Although Forster, he's going to take 2, and he's going to come out in the race lead.
Lance Hill also does 2, and he's going to beat Brian M. Smith off pit road, and so does AJ Green. So 78 was going to restart in the 5th position.
Smith absolutely jumped on this pit road exit as he's lost a total of 4 spots. Forster is going to be in the lead with Austin Bloom, AJ Green, Lance Hill behind him. And Smith, the driver who took 4 tires, now going to be on the inside of row 3. The big question is here, with a 2-tire call, is this worth it for guys like Forster, for guys like Bloom, for Green or Lance Hill, or maybe even in the case that they didn't put any sort of fuel in their race cars and just went for tires only?
If they took 2 tires, putting less fuel in the car or none at all is going to help, because you have inherent looseness when you take right side tires at any racetrack really. So if you take little to no fuel, that's going to help that loose condition by tightening the car up a little bit. So we'll have to see. And no doubt those top 4 did take 2 tires. So we'll have to see now what the game plan is for those, because I feel that those in the second row are going to be very vulnerable from those on 4 tires. But the guys with the best chance at making this work are those in the top 2 positions right now. So Colin Forster, Kenneth, he's had last lap passes for the win. Now he's in a position where he has to defend for the win.
And Forster has not been in this position before. He's usually been behind first or second. And he's been able to make that last lap pass. But could this be a reversal of some sorts? Although Forster is in place to take a 3rd straight race win in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series. And with that, we're going to have our first attempt at a green-white checkered. You see the field doubled up already. Lights are out on the pace car. We'll run over the rules to see exactly how this goes out. We'll restart with exactly 2 laps to go. And the field pretty much is going to be in pursuit for the white flag. If anybody gets into crashes before we reach the white flag, yellow will be displayed. We'll rack them up and we'll try again. We have a maximum of 3 green-white checkered attempts before we can call this race official. But if the leaders get to the white flag in time before yellow can be displayed, or if the field entirely stays clean, then it's just a full battle all the way to the start-finish line and the race ending. Doesn't matter if the entire field crashes. We've seen it before in iRacing and many different venues. We've seen chaotic finishes before. So whatever happens on the white flag will stay in the white flag territory, and whoever comes across the line first will be the race winner. Colin Forster trying to look for a 3rd straight win. He will lead us to the green flag with rookie Austin Bloom to his outside. AJ Green and Lance Hill will line up here row 2 with Brian M. Smith, first driver on 4 tires. He'll be 5th with Craig Launslager to his outside, and a big shakeup through the top 10. Tyler Warner, Eric Schaefer, Kyle Benson, and Tyler Murray to your top 10. We'll see what happens as the field comes off turn 4 for what may be the final restart of tonight's action here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Pace car gonna make the sharp left. It is Forster, Bloom, back to the green flag for what may be the final time.
Keep an eye out on that third row. You see Brian Smith has gotten a good start. There goes Lance Hill to try and defend against Brian Smith. He's going to go to the inside. But look at Smith trying to be aggressive. He's going to get boxed in through turn 1.
Brian Smith tried to make the move underneath Lance Hill, but got the door absolutely shut on him as they are gridlocked for third right now. Hill and I believe Austin Bloom trying to make space work, but Forster is able to gap by about a handful of car lengths on Bloom. Here's Smith 3 wide.
Smith trying to go 3 wide, trying to make up as many spots as he can. He's going to try and get up to third. Won't be able to. He'll get up to fourth, though. An extra spot moved up for him. And right now, that top 4 looking very impressive right now. Colin Forster leading, trying to get back to the white flag. He's battling the man he battled at Auto Club for this race win. Does AJ Green get the payback?
AJ Green was the loser out of it all. Finished third. Coming to the white flag as it's displayed tonight from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Smith still has a chance. Green with a run at turn 1. He's going to lock it up, be able to tuck back in, wait for turns 3 and 4. But does this give the ample opportunity for the 78 of Brian Smith to get back in the mix? He's going to try and get a run off 2. Forster going to have it. But as they come through the final set of corners, Forster's in control.
Forster's in control, and AJ Green's his best friend right now. Defensive goes AJ Green, trying to keep Brian Smith behind him. Look at how much they're weaving down the back straightaway.
And they're weaving again. Bump from Brian Smith to AJ Green, trying everything he can. Both of them hit the outside wall. Smith gonna charge all the way down to the infield grass and off turn 4. Can you see it? Can you believe it? 3 wins in a row for the rookie Colin Forster to the yard of bricks. He wins from Indy.
Incredible finish. Colin Forster gets it done, Kenneth, for the 3rd straight week. Not a last lap pass this time, but 3 for 3 in overtime. This man has definitely shown he is able to live up to the pressure.
We talked about it with 20 laps to go, Francisco, that it was most likely going to be average finish of first, and second tonight. We were not expecting him to come through and win this race, considering how Brian M. Smith was so dominant. But it's this final restart and a 2-tire call to get him the leeway, to get him the position, and to get him a 3rd straight race win.
And you can see how happy his fellow rookies are representing that rookie group, giving him a ton of congratulations. AC Lance Hill giving a knock on the door there. Everybody's happy for the 99 of Colin Forster. He has shown up, Kenneth, and he has really made his mark already with 3 wins on the season, 3 races in. So this is very impressive, and it has put the competition on notice. They have to do something if they want to try and capture a win of their own.
And this makes things, I think, a little more scarier for everybody in the field, because you can dominate a race all night long and still not win with Colin Forster on your heels. And now he's going to take the moment to burn it down in front of the virtual fans. This will be the 3rd straight burnout. We thought we were going to see a different winner because of what happened in the ARCA Series last night. It won't change tonight from Indianapolis. Backs it into the wall, but it does not matter. Forster, your winner.
And celebrating on the yard of bricks for another race win this season. It's a great start for him. It's as great as it can be. 3 straight wins in the first 3 races. He can't really do anything to improve on that, but I think we did not expect this coming into this season, Kenneth. I mean, I don't think we anticipated him winning a race. Not any disrespect to him. We just don't know what the rookies have to prove. We haven't seen them before, so who knows what they're able to do. But we now know what Colin Forster can do, and now it's up to the likes of those who we continuously talk about week in and week out: Austin Reedy, Kyle Benson, TJ Bursk, another rookie, but has shown us what he can do in the ARCA Series, and Brian M. Smith, of course. It's up to them to see what they can do in the coming weeks. And at a track like Daytona next week, Kenneth, I don't want to spoil the bubble for that 99, but it's going to be very difficult to continue a winning streak going into a track like Daytona.
But you can't cross it out either, depending on how the finishes have gone, how wild races at super speedways can get. Mind you, especially at tracks like Daytona and Talladega, anything can still happen as the 99 continues to burn it down. He's going to revert it around. I think he's going to look for... Actually, no, he's going to revert it back, and I think park right at the start-finish line.
Into the wall again.
He's going to be looking for the screenshot. I know virtually you can't kiss the bricks, but for Forster. He's kissing him with his tires. And he'll line it up right at the start-finish line in gorgeous fashion. He's got a Daniel Suarez paint scheme tonight, but we can definitely call him the closer with how clutch he's been in the last 3 races. A big congratulations to the driver of the 99. We'll take a look at your full-fledged field results. Nice look at the 99 as he blows his engine in celebration of his 3rd straight race win. AJ Green, who came up just short at Auto Club, will come home 2nd tonight. Nice job by the rookie as well. And it's pretty much a rookie top 3. Forster, Green, and Bloom. Bloom in his first start in this series, able to knock off the last step of the podium tonight. Lance Hill also through P4. Fantastic effort for him. What a job by Kyle Benson to come off after losing a lot of ground in the final 20 laps in the long run. He ends up in the top 5 with Tyler Werner behind him. Craig Lownslugger to 7th. CJ Munier in 8th. Eric Schaefer able to walk away with 9th. Adam Alishar will come home with a top 10.
And looking down at the rest of the field, we have Nicholas Vizuzzi, who had recovered to that 11th place finish after early troubles in the race that derailed him, but he does recover to take a P11 finish. And you see behind him Ken MacArthur, who was involved in the 2nd caution of this race, finishing in 12th. Tyler Murray in 13th. Michael Newbraw in the 14th position. Ricky Rosner finishes down in 15th. Brian M. Smith, who dominated this race, was 3 laps away from winning it before that late yellow, crashes off of turn 3 and does not complete the final lap. He finishes in 16th, 1 lap down. Dustin Webb and Brandon Gillis finishing also 1 lap down. Brandon T. Banks finishing 2 laps down after that caution, in that 2nd caution where he had to take that toe and the fast repair, and it was never able to really get the cautions necessary to get those laps back. Pete Bruni finishing in the 20th position after that lap 1 crash.
We'll take a look. I think this definitely deserves a final look before this
no
race
doubt.
is over. This restart, most notably here. As you look at the field, there's Colin Forster. So this is coming to 1 to green. And this will be the next, it'll be the next lap when this happens. We'll try to get a look if we can get this next lap in tow. Get it all the way. Actually, no, this is 81. So this is near the end of this race, but we'll try to get, nonetheless, a look at the final laps in this event and give you a look at just how stellar that finish was. Here it is, replay of the final charge to the start-finish line. You see the 99 coming through. He was already in the race lead, so this is the first time we've seen the 99 in that position. You see AJ Green, he was already charging. And Brian M. Smith, you'll see him there right in the shot, completely stampeding, going 3 wide, trying to get every position he can. Goes underneath the 34, goes underneath Austin Bloom. And then he tries to go, of course, for 2nd in just a couple laps' time. And walk us through it right here, Francisco. If you're Brian M. Smith, I mean, you have to be this aggressive because time is running out. You're only coming to the last final lap. You have to make things work at this point in this race.
Without a doubt, and with 2 to go, there is no tire saving. You use the tires right here, right now, because this is for the win. And at this point, really, on the white flag, you're 3rd. You're still in a pretty decent enough spot. The only problem was that he didn't gain enough ground physically on that 48 to try and make a move on this part of the racetrack, and that left him having to make that move on the back straightaway. And just having that extra buffer of 1 car is all that Forster needed. You saw the 48 have a moment there off of 2 that allowed Brian M. Smith to try and make the move, and AJ Green was not going to give this 2nd place without a fight. Realizing he still probably had a decent chance at the win, Brian M. Smith knew that this was his only chance. He put the bumper to the back of the 48, sent them both up the racetrack. Brian M. Smith, though, got the worst end of this, hits the wall very hard, comes to a stop here on the bottom of the racetrack after realizing the win is over and does not complete the final lap. AJ Green unable to build enough of a run off the final corner, and Colin Forster swerving to the inside line, knowing that that is a race win for him.
What an unbelievable set of 2 laps to end this race here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now we'll try and talk with your race winner for the 3rd time in a row. It'll be the 99 of Colin Forster. We'll take a moment with him in victory lane here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as he gets to kiss the virtual bricks. Colin, I don't think anybody predicted this, even to start this season. Even after the first race, it was like, okay, well, this was a surprise win. This was a last lap clutch moment. But then you do it again, and then you do it a 3rd time. Can you believe how the past 3 races have gone and how you've been able to close out and clutch it for the win?
No, I can't believe, especially coming to the last few laps on every race, being able to pull it off. 78 was fast. We just luckily took 2 tires on that stop. We all agreed to take 2, and I think if I didn't have my teammates behind me, I don't think I would have won that race. I'd like to thank them because they helped me a lot. Just trying to keep the 78 back, and we pulled a 1, 2, 3, 4.
As a 1, 2, 3, 4 for you guys, and of course all rookies in this series. How big of a statement is this to not only win the first 2 races in a row, but to have a full trifecta going into Daytona next Wednesday?
It's definitely great to have good teammates, especially coming in here and racing for the first time. I don't know if I could pull it off at Daytona. I'll try, but I don't like the new plate package, and we have teammates, so we'll see what happens. Lance is good at plate tracks, so maybe he can win, but who knows at Daytona? Anybody can win.
I think
Colin, it's been a dream for those first 3 races, getting P1 in every single one of them. I know you're ecstatic about that. You touched upon the thoughts of Daytona, and your teammates, they really helped you there at the end of the race, holding off that fast 78. But in the closing laps before that final caution, what were your thoughts as you were in that heavy battle for second? Was a win in the mind at any point in that run?
Win definitely was not in the mind. I was hoping for a caution, and luckily we got one. But I was just trying to save fuel, and so was everyone behind me. We were a little bit short. I would have made it to the end. I started pushing like almost right when the caution came out. Uh, but we definitely worked well as a team today, and I'm happy to see that. And Daytona's going to be key for teamwork, so hopefully we can get it done there.
well, 3 race wins in a row. Gonna be looking for 4, and of course, as you said, anything can happen. And from what we've learned in the first 3 races, anything can happen in any sort of possible scenario. Colin, before we let you go to celebrate this 3rd straight race victory, is there anybody you'd just like to give the shout out to? Any team sponsors or anybody else that makes it happen for you?
I'd like to shout out Plan B and Circle B Diecast for sponsoring us. I'd like to shout out to you guys doing the broadcast. Great job like usual. Shout out to all my teammates, and shout out to my family for watching.
We certainly appreciate the support. And I said it before, we brought you in for the interview. You got a Daniel Suarez scheme tonight. We can call you the closer, though. Kevin Harvick style. Clutch in the first 3 races to get 3 straight victories. Congratulations, Colin. Looking forward to see what you can put up at Daytona next Wednesday.
All right, thank you, sir.
Colin Forster, unbelievable way to get 3 straight wins in a row. He's riding an absolute high going into Daytona, and for good reason, able to hold on in the final laps over the rest of the field. And speaking of the rest of the field, it's teammate AJ Green who comes up in P2, so it is a complete all-out gridlock for those drivers at the end of this race, as AJ Green is trackside with our own Francisco Baquia.
AJ, it's another win for Colin Forster, but another top 3 finish for yourself. Interesting finish there. I know that the closing laps before that final caution were very mundane, and there was a big battle going on for second. But I think once that caution came out and you guys took the 2 tire strategy, it unleashed all hell for that win.
Oh, it definitely did. As Colin said, we all agreed to take 2, and the 78 was starting behind me with 4, so I knew he would be an immediate threat. Lance blocked him on the start, which almost turned himself. Then once we hit the white flag on the backstretch, I was just blocking to not let him by, because if he got by, he would probably have a shot at Colin in 4. And then we touched, and we both hit the wall, and he got the worst end. But yeah, it was just a really great race, honestly. I liked the last lap of that race.
And it was a quiet night for you for the most part. We saw you sort of in that top 10 area for most of the evening, kind of being there, but not really being there at the same time. But when it mattered most, you were able to pull through and get this excellent result. We have Daytona next week. You guys had great teamwork here. What's the kind of teamwork that I know it's going to be similar kind, but what specific kind of teamwork do you think is going to be necessary to try and win at Daytona with this new super speedway package that we have?
Definitely communication, when to pass, when to move high, because I know with the new package, you really need momentum to pass. So if we all can get lined up on the top or the bottom, I think it's going to be a done deal for everyone. But I think it's going to be communication that matters the most at Daytona.
And we also know that you have many people, many sponsors, anybody really to give thanks to for putting this effort. So I'll give you the stage so you can give the shout outs to those people.
Yeah, shout out to Circle B, Plan B, Colin for winning, Stonk Motorsports, great finish for everyone. Shout out to you guys for broadcasting. Shout out to my family as well. And yeah,
We appreciate you taking the time, AJ. Another top 3 finish. We wish you luck going into Daytona next week.
thank you.
AJ Green coming home in second. Of course, the teammates end up in the first 2 positions. And also bringing in teammate to the top 3, rookie in his first ever start, Austin Bloom in the 27, ends up on the last step of the podium. We'll bring in Austin right here, trackside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Austin, I think for your first race, I think many say that the first race is all about survival, all about either pushing the car, keeping it conservative. What motive was it for you entering this race and this series for the very first time?
Really, it wasn't too bad, honestly. I knew a bunch of the drivers that are in the league already, so I kind of felt comfortable off the jump here. But it was always about survival for the first, I don't know, 70 laps. Just trying to get to the end there, saving fuel on that last run and everything. Just try to survive, get a top 5, I thought.
Well, as broadcasters up in the booth, we watch the races, of course. We see different runs go out. We see how races play out. And going into this one, especially in the final 5 laps, maybe even 3 laps, we were saying, okay, this is going to stay green. Things are going to pan out how they've been most of the night. It's going to be green flag racing. And then a yellow comes out, bringing a green-white checkered. How big did that surprise you? Because I know that surprised us in the booth, but I know as a driver that must have been amplified by at least 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah. I was just kind of wanting the laps to turn down and get my P3 and, get it done with. But, caution comes out and it throws a wild card in and you never know what can happen. You can lose your entire race in a turn. So we just all kind of had to get our heads back in the game and refocus and do our best on the restart.
Well, you got your head in the game, Zac Efron style. You were able to finish in P3 at the end of tonight's race. And going into Daytona, first super speedway race of this season, going into that, are there any expectations you're going to carry going for there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful, carry this momentum in there, get a win, hopefully. Not the biggest fan of super speedway racing, but wouldn't say I'm bad at it. I'm just gonna have to do like I did here today and work with Colin, AJ, Lance, and Adam and get the best result I can.
Well, nonetheless, a 3rd place finish in your first start. Reckon that's obviously got to feel very good going into the rest of this season. But Austin, before we let you go, is there anybody you'd just like to give a shout out and love to? Any thanks to any sponsors, teams, or just anybody you just like to give thanks to for tonight's effort?
Yeah, first off, I want to thank my mom for watching. She's a big supporter of mine, obviously. I want to thank Plan B Sales and Circle B Diecast for coming on as a sponsor of not just myself, but Colin, AJ, and my team I have in a different league up from esports. Really thankful for the support they give us. I want to thank you for putting on the broadcast and look forward to the rest of the season.
Well, we certainly appreciate it, Austin. I think after this performance, we'll be looking forward to every performance you have here on out for the rest of this 4-wide racing season. A big congratulations on your 3rd place finish from Indianapolis tonight. And, of course, looking forward to see you next Wednesday at Daytona.
Thank you. You too.
That's Austin Bloom, rookie race with his team, comes home in P3. We can finally get back to the booth, kind of unravel all the thoughts, all the emotions after what was a completely different race for many of them. And tonight, Francisco, we were expecting a different race winner comparative to how parallel it was with the ARCA series. And I guess now that we realize that much like it was 2 different paths with the yellows, it's going to go 2 different paths with the winners. Forster clutching it up in the final laps.
He did a great job to get that win, Kenneth. He kept the track position necessary in order to make that move down pit road with under that caution to try those 2 tires, see if it will work. He had nothing to lose. He had won 2 races in a row. He had the points lead. He's the driver that can make that and not have to worry about the repercussions of it. And you heard him say the whole team took 2 tires, they bought in to try and get the team a win, and it worked out. It worked out. Every single one of them played a factor in trying to prevent Brian M. Smith from getting all the way to the lead car. And I'm pretty sure with the communication those guys have that it took a lot of trust in each other to do this, regardless of who was the one out front, because they probably would have done it for either other driver that was in contention, whether it was Lance Hill, the lead car, whether it was AJ Green as the lead car. They all would have done this to try and get themselves a win. They have that sort of connectivity, it seems. And it's going to be very interesting going to Daytona next week to see if they're able to do something similar, knowing how plate races work out and just the super speedway nature of races, the true super speedway racing nature, where you're constantly full throttle around those high banks of the Daytona International Speedway. Both ARCA going to the Legacy Daytona and the Cup Series going to the regular new pavement Daytona with the brand new grandstands. That's going to be very interesting next week on Tuesday and Wednesday night at 9 p.m. with the ARCA Series being on KBRN and, of course, the Cup Series being on 4Wide Racing. Going to be very interesting next week, Kenneth, and I can't wait for it.
It's going to be an exciting next couple of weeks, especially next week as Colin Forster celebrates a third straight race win from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And speaking of the upcoming events that we'll have here, not only on MaxSpeedTV, but over on the branch at the K1 Racing Network, we'll find K1 Racing Network's action of the 4Wide Racing ARCA Series next Tuesday night from the virtual Daytona International Speedway, but on the legacy version, the bumpy Daytona. We'll have that coverage at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. Of course, Francisco and I will be in the booth along for that, as well as Wednesday's coverage next week. We'll have coverage from Daytona, but it'll be the new paved Daytona, and that coverage begins at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. We'll see if the driver in your screen can take a fourth race win in a row. Teamwork made the dream work. 2 tire calls for the entire team gives Colin Forster his third straight 4Wide Racing Cup Series victory going into the high banks of Daytona next Wednesday. So for everybody at the 4Wide Racing Cup Series, for Tyler Moore, league owner, Nicholas Vizzuti, Craig Loundstarger, Austin Reedy, and everybody is a part of the race council that makes these races happen each and every week. And for all of us at MaxSpeedTV and my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacchiao, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying so long and good night from the virtual Brickyard. We'll head to Northern Florida next week to see if the 99 can take 4.